Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to another Scrap 5 challenge. This month would be December and you're looking at the 5 items right now on my screen that we're all going to be using on our layouts today. I am going to add everyone participating today in my description box, so be sure to go on over and check out their layouts. And I'll also add a list of all the items I use on this layout today down below, so check that out as well. Right now I'm just crossing off the very first item already, which would be to use 3 or more photos. I have some photos here from our Virginia Beach vacation this year. And I also pulled out some thin cuts here from this stamp and thin cut set from Close to My Heart. This actually goes with the Candid Moments collection that I'm going to be using today as well. So here we have the pattern paper from this collection. Absolutely beautiful collection. If you want to take a look at it, I will have it linked below. And I actually used it on a previous layout where I documented some more of these photos from our vacation this year. So I'm going to go through right now and pull out this pattern paper with all of these circles. Now, the last layout, I used this thin cuts and stamp set. I actually stamped those circular images and I actually used the title as well and use the thin cuts, but today I'm going to use the thin cuts directly on this pattern paper here and cut out some of these circle elements. I am going to be using my small die cut machine. I love this little machine. If I can find it online, I'll have it linked down below. And I'm going to just cut out a strip of the circles here so that it can fit through that machine. Of course, if you're using a larger die cut machine, you don't need to cut it down as much as I did here. So I'm going to cut around some of these circles here that I want to use. And I am going to go ahead and start cutting out some of these designs. So I pulled out the 4 circles here, 2 large ones, 2 smaller ones. I'm going to cut my pattern paper down even more so it can fit through that machine there. And I'm going to die cut quite a few of these circles. Now, if you guys are not already following us on Instagram with our layouts, every month we share a Scrap 5 challenge. 5 items we're all using. We add them to our Instagram and use the hashtag Scrap5. You can see us there. You can also, of course, see us here on YouTube, see our process for our layouts. If you want to join in and do the challenge yourself, I invite you to do that, and be sure to let us know in the comments where we can see your layouts. We'll love to see your take on using these same 5 items. So here I'm just going to go ahead and die cut quite a bit of these. I'm not going to have you sit through all of them. I'm just giving you a glimpse into how I went about doing this. And next I will move on to my photos. Now for my background today, I'm going to be using a pattern paper, and it's going to be from the Mix In pack from Close to My Heart. Now this Mix In pack goes very well with the November and our December collections. The Candid Moments would be the November collection. If you want to see both of these collections, I will have that linked below, but I am going through the mix-ins right now. I'm gonna go ahead and use a neutral background. I love how this pattern paper looked against those photos. The color went really nicely, but I decided to go with the gray background instead. And I love both sides of this gray pattern paper here, but I am gonna flip it over and use the other side instead today. Now I'm loving the strip on the top, the zip strip. So when I mat this on my cardstock, I'm gonna keep that zip strip intact. So I'm gonna trim my pattern paper down right now to 11 by 11. Of course, this first piece that I'm cutting off here is gonna be about 1.5 inches instead of just 1 inch because we have the zip strip still attached there. And here I'm gonna just trim off so it's 11 inches wide. Now the cardstock that I'm using is from close to my heart. It is the Carolina cardstock that I used, and I'm using the same color ink pad here to ink the edge of this pattern paper before I adhere it to the cardstock. And you can see I'm just going directly with the ink pad onto that paper. Of course, if you want more control, you can definitely use a finger dauber or a blending tool instead to add that ink to the edge. So now I want to go ahead and trim these photos down. They were originally 6x4. I'm gonna trim them down to 5x4 each. And I will go ahead and add a mat behind each of these photos. I'm gonna play around right now just with the placement of where I want them to be on my layout, because you can see I have 2 horizontal photos there and 1 vertical. So I wanted to have an idea of how I want them to be on the background. So next up, I will go ahead and mat my photos, and you can see I play around with these quite a bit. I'm gonna just use a plain white cardstock to mat each of these photos and just leave a very thin border all the way around. I'm gonna pull in my Carolina ink pad once again and ink the edges of all of these photos, and you definitely have to be really careful doing it the way I'm doing it right now with the ink pad directly on the edge. You do not want to get it on your photo. So if you're not used to doing it this way, I definitely suggest you use a finger dauber or a blending tool, which gives you a lot more control. So we need to have a diagonal design, a diagonal stripe or candy cane on our layout, and I decided to go with the diagonal stripe. I'm going to use washi today. So I'm just removing it here from my organizer here that I use for my washi tape. And I pulled out 2 different ones here. I love the heart, but the pattern, I don't think it went really well. Seeing that I already have like 2 other patterns on the background already, I just was not liking how it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and use the bolder washi there, which would be the black and white stripe. And adding this washi in a diagonal design on my background was definitely very bold. It made a very bold impact on this layout, but I think at the end it really worked all together and gave me a nice pop on my background without overwhelming my photos. So I'm just going to place the first one there, and I'm going to add 2 more strips. So we have that diagonal design, but you definitely want to make sure the spacing in between your washi is about the same. I am not using a ruler to measure the spacing. I'm just eyeballing it right now, and you can see I'm just adjusting it as I go to have about the same distance between each one of these strips. I will pull it up a few times just to make sure. So now that I have that in place, I am going to work on my photos. I'm adding some foam adhesive behind this one photo here that's going to be at the bottom. I'm going to lay that down on my background, and the other 2 photos I'm just going to add directly on the background using some liquid adhesive. Actually, I use my ATG adhesive there. Now, I'm laying this photo down here, but I will go back in and move it up just a tiny bit before I move on to the next step. And here you can see I already moved it up, and now I'm going to work on adding in my circles that I die cut before. So I sorted my pieces here just by color. I want to make sure each one of these colors are in each of my my clusters here. I'm going to have like 3 clusters, a larger one where my title would be, and 2 smaller ones. So I'm going to go back and forth with each one of these circles. And that half a circle would be one that was on the edge of the pattern paper. And I have a mix here of large, medium, and small. I laid down the larger ones first, then the medium and the small. Now I will go ahead and use some liquid adhesive to adhere these pieces to my background, but some of these I will add some foam adhesive, and that way I'm adding some dimension to my layout. So I'm just gonna go ahead right now and add my liquid adhesive. Now that I have them all where I want them to be, definitely a good idea to arrange them first and then you add adhesive instead of having to rip them apart like I sometimes do. So for this small one, I want it to be on top of the photos. So I'm gonna add some foam adhesive behind that small one there. I am actually gonna do the same for the two smaller ones. That's gonna be close to where my title would be. So now I'm gonna go ahead, take a look at my list. I have 3 or more photos. I have my diagonal strip and I use the punch or thin cuts. I use the thin cuts. So I wanna work on my title. I pulled out this card from the Picture My Life card set here, also from the same collection, and it has the word love on there. I wanted to use that as part of my title. I am gonna fussy cut the word love out of this card. And if you guys do not like fussy cutting, I suggest a really nice pair of scissors. It definitely makes a huge difference. I love these scissors. These are from close to my heart and they cut smoothly, makes this so much easier. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fussy cut out the word love. And next up, I will work on the other parts of my title. Now my title says love the view. And I decided since I had those black diagonal stripes, I want to have some black alphas as part of my titles. And at this point, adding in my title, I considered my word love might not really blend really nicely with it. Might just look a little bit not cohesive. So I am actually going to use these alphas for the entire title. So now I have the word love there sitting and will probably be used on another layout. So I'm going to use my T-square ruler just to help me line them up nice and straight here. And I do use a mix of the uppercase letters from that sticker sheet as well as the lowercase letters. And they keep flying away from me. You'll see them just pop off the tweezer that I'm using there. So I just play around with it. You can see I used the uppercase I here, but it was not looking that good. So I just switched over to the lowercase one. And then I'll go ahead and finish up my title. So here we have my title on the right side. I pulled out the sticker sheet from this collection. There were some circles on there. I am going to add just a small cluster next to the title. And I'm going to trim off what's hanging off the edge there. So I'm really loving how this is coming together so far, and I am going to add in another circle here. I'm going to add some more foam adhesive behind this tiny one. And it's really nice to add foam adhesive behind some of your elements on your page, and they'll lift it up, adding dimension. So everything is not just flat on your layout. I'm going to pull in some hearts as well from the same sticker sheet, and I'm going to add those to each of the clusters. I am adding in this one here. This is that mustardy yellow color, but that will not stay. I eventually removed that. I just felt it was standing out a little bit too much on its own and wasn't really blending in with the other elements on the layout. So we also need to use some wood grain on our design this month, and I'm pulling in these wood grain design die cuts, and I'm pulling in all of the hearts I can find on this die cut sheet here. And like I said before, all of these items I'm using today will be linked down in my description box below. So I'm just going to go ahead and play around with where I want them to be, and once I have them in place, I go back in with my liquid adhesive and adhere them to the background. And you can see here some of these elements will be placed directly on my photo. So I'm just going to cross off right now what I have. I have wood grain. I have everything except for my gold or silver splatters. Now I did lose a little bit of footage here. My camera stopped recording. So I'm showing you that I added in those enamel hearts and a little circle element there next to my title. That's from my little scrap bin that I have close to my desk here. So I added a little tiny bit of journaling here that says Virginia Beach vacation and the year these photos were taken. I cut that strip apart, and I'm using some liquid adhesive to add them to that cluster there. And now I'm going to add in my silver splatters, and I'm using silver ink here. It's been a while since I used it, so I had to shake it up really well. And the small brush that I usually use to do my splatters, I did not have it close to me, so I'm using this fan brush. I probably should have poured a little bit of the ink into something else, but I decided to go directly in the bottle with that huge fan brush. And I'm just going to add those splatters to each of my clusters. And I am going to pull in just a little cardstock here to any little bit of scrap, just to make sure you don't get it. I didn't get it on my photos. And these are really subtle because they're silver, but you'll see it a lot better in the close-up shots that's coming up at the end. I'm also going to pull in some liquid pearls here. I cannot remember the color that I used, but I will add that information down below. I'm going to add some of these here to each of the clusters, and I can never get a really nice perfect circle, but they worked. So looking at the layout, I felt the balance was a little bit off. I felt it needed a little something else to the top left of the layout. So I'm going to pull in the washi once again and add a strip of it there, and also a cluster. Now I cut that little banner apart, but I decided in the end to use the entire banner. So that's what I'm putting together right now. And that's also from that wood grain die cut sheet. I pulled in a sticker that says best day ever and the word love as well. So now we have that cute little cluster on the top left, and I feel the balance is a lot better now. I also added in a few of the liquid pearls there as well. So here we have a close-up look at my completed layout. I hope you guys enjoy the process today and it inspires you to go ahead and get some of your photos documented. We have some close-up shots here as well. Don't forget, check out my description box for a link of all everyone that's participating today. Check out their layouts using these 5 items, and I want to thank you all for watching. So until my next video, bye.